trading new taxes for tax cuts.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Karen Kassler, State House Bureau Chief for Ohio Public Radio and Television. Jim Siegel, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch. Michael Cole, Democratic strategist, and Gene Krebs, former state legislator.
With the economy growing, budget cuts behind him, Governor John Kasich wants to cut taxes. The governor proposes cutting the state income tax, taxes on small businesses, and the state sales tax. Here are the details. The Kasich plan would cut the personal income tax by 20% over the next 3 years. It would cut in half the tax paid by small business owners. Now, small business owners are defined as those making $750,000 or less each year. The plan cuts the state sales tax by 0.5%. There's a catch there. We'll get to that in a moment. And because the state has such a big surplus, we'd get an additional automatic tax cut this year.
The purpose of this is to make sure Ohio remains competitive. We've had too many businesses, too many people that have left this state and taken their wallets with them.
Karen Kassler, it's been a week, well, almost a week, a few days since this was unveiled. What are people saying about it now?
Well, this budget is interesting in that it does have the income tax cuts, but it also has what can be fairly argued as tax increases. You mentioned the catch there. The idea that the state sales tax is going to be now applied to services that didn't have a sales tax before. It is going to be lowered from 5.5% to 5%, but it's going to be broadened in a sense to bring in more people. That's how the governor, along with the severance tax increase, is going to be paying for this income tax.
The severance tax is the tax on oil and gas drillers. Democrats complain this is weighted towards the middle class and low-income folks. But it's across the board for everybody.
Well, it's across the board for everybody, but I think what everybody needs to understand is that your poor and working middle class folks are going to be the ones that pick up the larger tab in the tax base, just in terms of how much they pay comparable to their income. So, for example, if you fall within $11,000 to, say, $50,000 in income, this sales tax alone can have you seeing somewhere between, $8 to $77 a year increase. Now, some might say, well, that's not necessarily significant. When you think about all of the other taxes that you have to pay, including Fed, when you add us all in, including cost of living, you see that this attack on that income is something that hurts.
And actually, Policy Matters Ohio, which is a liberal think tank, had done a study saying that the average net tax cut for the top 1% of income earners would be more than $10,000, but the bottom 20% of taxpayers would pay an increase averaging $63. That'd be an increase.
Right.
Gee.
But the reality is that 90% of the taxes are paid by about 10% of the population. Anytime you talk about this, the other thing, though, that's not gaining any ink, that I'm very surprised about, is that states that have a highly progressive income tax rate tend to have greater, shall we say, windfall profits at certain points in times, and then have it hit lower. There is a good policy behind having your state income tax being lower, and ideally it should also be more flat, is because then you don't get these huge spikes and then drops. Two states have the highest progressive income tax structure in America, California and Ohio. And I would say for a large number of the working poor who may be dependent upon certain state programs, they get whipsawed. And we see a fair amount of public policy whipsawing going on in the state as we get overly flush and then we crash unusually hard.
Jim Siegel, that's why we want the large rainy day fund to the max, is what the governor wants to fill it up. So when we do have a downturn, we can handle it.
Right, and that's the other part of this is that, in addition to these income tax, once you wash it out, the income and the sales tax, you're looking at about, the governor says, a $1.4 billion cut over 3 years. But at the same time, in this current year, you're supposed to have about a $1.4 billion surplus, of which $900 million they'd put into the rainy day fund to fill it up, get it up to close to $1.5 billion, which is near the 5% statutory limit they like to have. and then that leaves an extra about $415 million, which they would then they want to return as a one-time income tax cut of about 4%. Now, there I think you're going to see a lot of argument. You're already hearing it in committee right now in the Finance Committee from some folks, particularly Democrats, saying, "Wait a minute, why are we so interested in giving back a 4% one-time income tax cut when this budget is not giving more money to, not restoring the cuts to local governments, only partially restoring the cuts to schools, and we have other needs."
Are Republicans going to go along with that? Democrats want more spending on that stuff, but what about Republicans at the State House, which they're in the majority, of course?
I think there's a concern, too, about the decision to expand Medicaid in this budget, to expand it to 138% of the federal poverty level. I think there are a lot of Republicans who are saying that that's maybe something that they'd like to consider and think more about. I talked to a Republican lobbyist who was saying this is the kind of thing that should be broken out of the budget, and Republicans and Democrats should be able to vote on it separately. It should not be part of the budget, but maybe should be a separate issue.
Well, and I think the sales tax expansion is going to be hard to swallow, even as a part of what the governor is calling an overall tax cut. There's going to be a lot of lobbying pressure from a variety of groups. I mean, that list is huge.
Well, speaking of that list, we have it. Now let's get to that catch. The governor does want to cut all kinds of taxes, the income tax and the sales tax overall. But to help pay for those cuts, he wants to impose those new taxes, the sales taxes on services that traditionally have not been taxed. Here's that list. It is pretty long. Take a look. Pet grooming. Tugboats would now be taxed. Lower loan brokers would be taxed. Ticker tape reporting, if we even still have that, that would be taxed. Dating services, debt counseling, mailbox rentals, advertising agency fees. If you have to get bailed out, you pay a tax. Magazine subscriptions, mailroom services, sales of time and space and advertising, PR, management consulting, parking lots, garages, tickets to the Blue Jackets and to OSU football, bowling alleys, cable TV, pinball machines are taxed, attorneys, data miners are taxed, public relations, even trailer parks. The governor says it's a good list and he's ready for a fight.
We think this is good for small business. We think this is good for economic growth. There will be some special interests who will not think it's better. They will come to the legislature and they will pound on people. I just want to make it clear. When they win, the people of the state lose.
Gene Krebs, you're what you call a recovering lawmaker.
Yes.
Are folks going to get pounded on, as the governor said, over these increased taxes? Lawyers, for instance?
Yes. There's an old saying called the upright nail gets hammered down, and right now you have 132 nails sitting across the street. I think what you're going to see, though, is the fact we have to recognize that the society, the economic structure we have today is not your grandfather's economic structure. It's not the structure we had in the 50s and 60s. And so we're going to have to look at, say, what are the activities we are engaged in, what are the impacts upon the state, creates needs for us, and then what's the appropriate level of taxing.
Basically, we've shifted from a manufacturing-based economy, a good-based economy, to a service-based economy,
right.
And we haven't been taxing two-thirds of the economy. So doesn't this make sense? Is it not overdue?
And it's not unlike shifting back in 2005, and I know that many of my good friends on the other side of the aisle have, do not like what happened with the elimination of taxable personal property tax and Bob Taft's change of the tax. It's the same thing, is that we need to go to a different style, and it's always going to be disruptive.
But I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Remember, even though I understand the argument that we've turned from a goods-producing economy to a service economy, with that service economy comes much lower wages significantly, comes a larger work base and employment base of people who fall within that income threshold who are going to be adversely impacted. That's the bottom line. This also affects small businesses as well. They have to transfer those costs to the consumer.
And I agree that but the small businesses are getting a nice tax cut, and I've not talked to anybody except attorneys who feel bad about attorneys getting taxed.
Well, and I think even the governor made a joke about when he was asked what are some of the items that will be on this list. This is before we saw the list, 2 days before we saw the list when we had the budget briefing on Monday. He listed things like architects and accountants and lobbyists, and he even joked that lobbyist is going to be something that, of all people to be taxed, the people who are there at the State House are likely to have a concern about this.
Jim, it is a long list. I mean, everything from dog groomers to hairstylists to lawyers and lobbyists and accountants. By having such a long list, does that help the governor win approval for this because it's divide and conquer?
It does, in that he can argue he's being consistent. He's not playing favorites. He's not singling folks out, which is, I think, is more helpful than these efforts have been in the past. I know during the Taft administration there was an effort to raise on a few of the pick and choose. This by saying, look, we're just lumping everybody into one big group, and so you should all have to pay the tax on. Then you're all in the same boat. At the same time, you also notice he didn't hit any of the income tax exemptions that he was talking about earlier. Those he left alone. He said, well, there are some businesses in this state that rely on those, and they kind of like having them, so we'll keep those around. But
the things that were exempt, though, and there were exemptions carved out, and I thought a couple of them were interesting. For example, veterinarians and personal instruction for golf, tennis, dance, and that sort of thing. And, the tax commissioner told us that these things that were carved out were essential, things like medical and social services and housing and that sort of thing. But there are, for example, lawyers who are saying, wait a minute, we're not considered essential for people who need legal services, so that may be a little bit of a pushback there.
If you're a defendant, I guess you would say a lawyer is essential. If you're a plaintiff, perhaps not, but if you feel you've been wronged, then that's the deal. So, will this happen? Will it get watered down? Will it get passed in total, or will the favorites, the big money groups, get theirs pulled out?
Here's your problem. Speaking now as a former member of the Finance Committee, if you say, I'm going to pull this out, I now create a hole in the budget. And our Constitution requires that our budget balance, okay, at least on the day that it's passed, okay, at least on paper that day. And if you pull that out, you're going to have to fill it in from something somewhere else. And now you're going to cause more fights going off in the circles.
That means raising taxes somewhere else, basically.
Or cutting an essential program to something. Then all of a sudden you get those advocates weighing in.
Or you switch to the LSC revenue and Medicaid numbers, which are about $300 million higher than the administration's, which gives you $300 million more to play with.
Or you go after this, or you go after that. Right.
Yeah,
you have to guarantee.
$1 here, $1 million there, whatever.
Yeah.
Last week, Governor Kasich was talking about his new school funding plan, and he said this.
If you live in a district that is property poor, then you're going to receive a lot more state aid. We're going to help you more. If you live in a district that has greater wealth, then we expect that you're going to be able to do more to help yourself.
But what the governor said last week does not seem to match the numbers. Of all the districts classified as poor, most of them do not get any more state aid than they got this past year. And many affluent districts do get more state funding than they got this year. Here's a sample. Take a look at the Olentangy district. You could consider that a wealthy district. A whopping 332% increase in school aid. New Albany, 181% increase. Dublin got robbed. They only get a 25% increase. But then you look at some of the poorest districts in the state. New Lexington and Perry County, 0% increase, no new money. Same for Vinton County, no new money. In the poster district for school finance reform, the district where DeRolf came from, Northern Local, no new money. Jim Siegel, how does the governor explain what he said and what the numbers tell us?
Well, I'm not sure how he explains the way he said it. I think that's part of the problem, is that instead of just standing up and telling a whole room full of superintendents, we're going to make this fair, we're going to make this equitable, and we're going to have the money follow the child, he said, we are going to make sure if you're poor, you're going to get a lot more money, and that's clearly not what's happening here. Now, what they're saying is, look, some of these districts have seen student population growth decline. That's part of it. They're saying some of these rural areas have seen property taxes or property values go up more than they've gone up in the suburban areas, where they've actually declined in the urban areas. But there's also a factor that they didn't talk about so much that others who have looked at this have, is that they set the funding level at basically they started off at $5,000 per pupil. In 2009, the level was $5,700 per pupil. And now they take that $5,000 and they add several layers of funding on top of that. Yeah. But what I'm hearing from folks who are studying this right now is that they just didn't set the bar high enough so that these districts who were already getting additional aid, because the state has been trying for 15 years to push money to the poor districts, they just didn't set the bar high enough so that it would shovel more money that direction and it would actually increase their funding.
So do we expect them to tweak the formula more where these districts do get more money, but that means taking it away from the affluent districts, and they're not going to be happy?
Well, and I think here's an important thing. and you've heard me say this before on the show, that as a general rule of thumb, conservatives like funding individuals. Liberals prefer to fund systems. What we're seeing here is the shift from funding of a system, a school district, to funding the child. Mm-hmm. And so we're all trying to compare apples and oranges a little bit. I think it would have been almost better for the governor if he had said, by the way, the guarantee, this is what the guarantee actually is in each one of these districts also. So you could have seen that and go, you have half the number of kids you had 15 years ago, and you still have the same number of kids. You still get paid the same amount of money. So we need to get more data on that.
You didn't want to make a commitment to a guarantee anyway, number one. Number two, this still does not deal with the overall issue of how property owners are ultimately impacted by this. This is still not really addressing the systemic issue in DeRolf. How do we make this system constitutional in funding common public schools? Bottom line.
And having read the Sweeney's original decision, he says, A, local school district is a myth, and B, the way you fix that is you fund the child, not the district.
Karen, the reason why he says that the rural districts are getting no new money is because agriculture land has risen in value. Because farming has done, aside from the drought, farming has done pretty well the past few years. You got fracking, and you got all the leases down there. But the people who sit on that land, unless they sell it, they're not making any more money. These are still relatively poor areas.
And incomes haven't necessarily risen in these areas either. And so that's part of the problem. Like when you talk about New Lexington, you talk about Northern Local, these rural districts where there were serious concerns about the amount of money it takes to really be equitable. That's where some of that's come into play. And so I think the school funding formula is going to be something that's going to be very, very carefully looked over. I mean, this budget is huge when you start talking about not just the tax increases and the tax decreases, but also all this on top of it, plus some of the other issues that are going on. It's a lot of information.
And this is a different conversation, this budget, than we've had in the past two. The past two budgets have been, we don't have the money. Yeah. You're going to have to eat some cuts. We just don't have the money. They have the money now, and they have more money than they want to spend. So that is not the issue anymore. The issue is, how much do we believe you deserve? And that is really a different conversation. And now when you start lining up all those zeros across Appalachia, that is a more difficult conversation.
Is this all of his plan to reform? He wants to reform the tax system, wants to have more taxes on, the governor does, on services than we do now, where most of the money is being made in the economy now. Is this an effort to get school systems to reform, to consolidate, to change the way they do business?
I think the governor's been trying to do that for the last couple of years. And now school districts will tell you they've been doing this for quite a while, that they've been sharing services, they've been partnering on different things. But I think there's an attitude of, if you starve the system of money, then the system will have to change. And so that may be a little bit of what we're seeing here. I think we're going to see a lot more discussion about this, especially like Jim said. Now that the money's there can't be the argument of we can't afford this anymore.
And they did set up a fund, $300 million innovation fund, to basically tell schools, create some programs where you can save money. And one thing they keep talking about over and over again is, let's get one teacher in a class instead of one teacher in every classroom. You get one teacher teaching several classes at one time over the internet, and you save money that way. I don't know if that's going to fly or not. It might, but that's one of the kind of things we're talking about.
Of course, the conversation is, even locally, if we look locally here with the Education Commission that was started here in the city, I think a major part of their conversation piece is around how to shore up resources and bring efficiency to school districts. But the bottom line is, again, that there must be equitable funding. These are big institutions with a big employee base. Just take this school district alone. You've got a humongous employee base that has to be subsidized. How do you do that? And you get flat funding, or in the next biennium, possibly you don't get any funding.
Columbus, I think, got 13 or 14%.
14%, yes, sir.
Year. So we'll see. Let's get to Medicaid. The governor has signed on to a major part of the health care law he adamantly opposes. President Obama's health care law, as you know, requires everyone to buy health insurance. It requires larger businesses to offer health insurance plans. If you don't buy insurance, you face a penalty, or as the Supreme Court calls it, a tax. Republicans like Kasich don't like that idea, but that tax would help pay to cover people who cannot afford insurance by expanding Medicaid. Because the Supreme Court gave Ohio a choice, The governor had a choice, and he has now chosen to go with the president's plan to get more coverage to more people.
Many of these people who are below the $14,000 in income, some of the poorest Ohioans, they get their primary care in an emergency room. Now, that is not the best way to get people primary care. Not only is it not good for them because it doesn't allow them to get healthy, but secondly, it drives up the cost of everybody's health insurance.
Jim Siegel, back in the summer, or in the fall, the Kasich administration was saying if we try to expand Medicaid, we're going to end up spending tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. It was going to not work, but now it's going to work. What happened?
Well, back in the fall, they only looked at really half of the equation. They looked at what's called typically the woodworking effect, where you have a number of folks who currently qualify for Medicaid, but they're not on Medicaid. But they assume that there will be thousands of people who will join Medicaid rather than pay this penalty.
Come out of the woodwork.
So they'll come out of the woodwork. That will cost the state money because it's a 60-40 split between federal and state on the match there. What they didn't calculate at the time was that the state would save, I think they've estimated now, $235 million over the next 2 years through the expansion. And I think locals will save another $100 million through the expansion because now you've got prisoners who can go on Medicaid. You've got a lot of mental health services that can move to Medicaid and other things. So they didn't factor that in. So now it looks like a big savings, at least in the short term. Now they are worried about what happens down the road. But for now, their argument is it seems to make sense. I've talked to some Republican lawmakers who are very much into the Medicaid issue, and they kind of say, well, we don't like Obamacare at all, but but it's either if we don't do this, I mean, there's $13 billion over 7 years from the feds that we will not get.
Every group, aside from the Tea Party, wanted this, especially the hospitals and the medical associations. Karen, how much sway did that have on the governor's decision?
I think it had a huge amount of sway there. I mean, when you've got the Columbus Area Chamber of Commerce and when you've got other business groups, you've got the big medical groups all saying this is a good idea, I think that really did make a difference. I still think there are some lawmakers who are concerned, and I think you're going to see some questions raised in committee and even on the floor about whether this is a good idea or not. But I think overall the impact there is seen in the budget.
Any backlash, Gene, from Tea Partiers that he's signed on to at least a portion of Obamacare?
Yes, and there will be. The question is going to be will they actually follow through with it? I think that in the House's case, having Bill Batchelder as Speaker, being very much a true conservative, my former mentor, as a member of the Caveman Caucus, I'm that conservative, and so's Batch. If anybody can get that House to go along with this, it will be Speaker Batchelder.
And I thought it was interesting during the budget briefing that the governor had a shout out to Speaker Batchelder, not once but twice, reminding everybody that he was in the room there. And I think that was critical, not only in this Medicaid thing, but also in the severance tax proposal, because it was Batchelder's folks that didn't like it when it was introduced the first time.
Michael, this makes sense because these folks are going to the ER, and that drives up the cost for the hospitals because they can't get recovery. Now they can go to Medicaid, or they'll have Medicaid coverage for these folks. So it makes sense to, on a human level, to offer these folks insurance.
You've got the Ohio Hospital Association saying that Ohio makes an annual expenditure of some $2.5 billion per annum on uninsured folks going to the emergency room. You have 1.5 million people here in the state of Ohio who are uninsured. The argument is there. The argument is compelling. He's got overwhelming support and why he should say yes. And I think he also made the statement that, you have to be courageous, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he's not going to, you're either afraid to do this because you're trying to be president or something to that effect. The bottom line is I think that he's going to move forward with this. He's got the support.
But he also made the statement that this was in no way an endorsement of what he calls Obamacare. Right. So.
But I think the net result of this is you look at the budget, and by the way, you folks have my sympathies in the media trying to cover this thing because there's like 5 major portions, any one of which would dominate the headlines for days. Yeah. You haven't talked about higher ed. What it does do is it really takes a page out of like some of the other things I've seen going around the country. It's going to make him extremely politically difficult to defeat, I think, in 2014 as a result of this budget. Yeah. He set himself up in a manner that no matter what the House and Senate do to it now, he's somewhat Teflon.
A number of Democrats have come out already and said they really support this idea. They hope, they're glad he's moving forward with it. It's 100% covered by the feds for the first 3 years, 90% after that. 275,000 people covered, so they want to see it go forward. It'll be, I don't know what outside of a hard cap and saying if there's anything that changes, which is already something's already in there to do that. We'll get out of it if the feds bail.
We got to get to our off-the-record comments, and Eugene, you go first.
All right, Hillary Clinton has come back from the State Department saying that she has now worked up a deal where Africa is going to be able to get broadband and cell phones and internet. Rural Ohio feels like they've been treated with benign neglect by the electronic infrastructure in Ohio, and they are going to base their vote for the next General Assembly member and the governor partially upon that. It's an emerging issue. We should watch it.
Can they hear them now? This will be their call.
Yes.
Michael.
Oh, wow, he comes to me second.
Yeah.
I just want to predict that I think that we're going to see some things significantly turn around here. Unfortunately, it is creating a Teflon kind of effect for the governor. For someone who's on the other side of the aisle of this thing, I do see that there's going to be some progressive action taking place here in the state.
Jim?
I predict that by the time the House and Senate are done with it, this House education or this school funding plan will have a lot fewer zeros next to those Appalachian districts.
And Karen?
2 sure signs of spring, not including the groundhog. We have the State of the State coming up on February 19th. This year it's in Lima, and we'll have a program on that. And also, pitchers and catchers are reporting this weekend. I cannot wait.
All right. My off-record comment, the revenue numbers for casinos included in the governor's budget, half of what casino supporters promised in 2009 when they were trying to put this on the ballot. Casino opponents are saying very loudly and very much in unison, "We told you so." We'll see how that affects tax revenues down the road. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. We urge you to continue the conversation online on Facebook and on Twitter. And you can connect to all of that at our website, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew, for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.